what is the ethnicity with the most millionaires? And see what it comes up with. I'm sure it's going to say like, European white or something like that, but it's probably going to say white is number 1. And I'm going to say Asian is number 2. There's got to be a lot of just very wealthy families in the Asian community. I don't know if Indian would be like a top 5.
Okay, so it says Caucasians.
Number 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Naturally.
Then it says white Americans make up the majority of millionaires, although the proportion of millionaires from other ethnic groups like Asian Americans has been growing due to their high levels of educational.
Oh, look at that! Who's racist now, dude?
Welcome to the Urban Movement Podcast, where hosts James and Danielle Urban are your guides to stepping up your self-improvement game with motivation, a side of humor, and some straight-up real talk. This is the intersection where authenticity and personal growth meet to help you break free from the Matrix. And unlock your full potential. Get ready for honest, raw, and uncut conversations with special guests. Let's dive in and start moving forward with the Urban Movement Podcast.
Or in a weekend, rather, because the week Monday through Thursday is shot.
Monday through Thursday are very difficult because of my work schedule, which we just got into an argument about because I said...
I mean, what would you call that, an argument? Is that a debate or an argument? I think it was a debate.
Okay, well, tomato, all right? I work from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. So I mentioned to Danielle, I'm like, you know what makes working from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. difficult is that I'm working twice in the same day. And she's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah, I am. I work, like, if I go in at work on one day, I leave work on another day, and then I go back in on that same day later on. And she's like, okay. I'm like, what do you mean, okay?
I said, okay.
Dude, I'm not getting into an argument with you about this again, because the thing is that...
But okay means okay. Why do you always have to come back and say like, oh, that wasn't a good enough answer? I actually agreed with you.
Yeah, but you got to be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Why do you got to just say okay and abruptly end the argument?
I have to say, you're right, honey.
No, because now you're basically saying like you're right and you're conceding so that I don't keep going on.
So it's the tone, not the actual statement.
It's everything.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, you're really impossible sometimes, and
I'm the impossible one. I said, okay.
Yeah, but it was the way in which you said okay. Like, you didn't have to say okay. You could have been like, yeah, you're right. I didn't think of it like that. There was other things in which you could have expressed yourself. You said okay. I mean, I'm just saying. But you do that to me with a lot of different things. Like, you do that with a wide range of things.
I'm non-confrontational.
You're non-confrontational, but at the same time...
Okay, then okay.
I don't even want to hear you say the word okay. I want you to give me a real answer.
Okay.
My stepfather, anytime that I would tell my stepfather, like growing up, he'd be like, let me ask you a question. Why didn't you do your homework? You know? Yeah. They would get my report card, and then they would see like I got a D. I hated school. I really did hate school. And then I got into college, and then I enjoyed going to college. I really did. Like, I enjoyed going into the class, and like I always did well when I went in. You're rolling your eyes.
You only had to go to one class.
One class a week, but I had to take 3 classes online.
Mm-hmm. You enjoyed that? You said you
She's
enjoyed-
saying that
I'm asking
because she took the classes.
I didn't say anything. I just asked if you enjoyed it.
Going to the class? Why are you doing this to me right now? Yes, I enjoyed the classes.
Okay.
Not the online classes. I hated the online classes.
That stuff, just the discipline to sit in front of a computer
And I ain't got it.
and the absurdity of the discussions that like people would just make up answers to get their like their check marks in.
Yeah, how many people out there have gone to online college? Phoenix University or like one of these other. I went to Berkeley College, which I love telling people like, oh, what college did you go? Berkeley. That's what and then they're like, damn, this dude must be smart as shit because Berkeley's an Ivy League school.
Berkeley what? University?
Berkeley, California.
Oh.
But when you tell them
So it's the University of California.
Berkeley.
Oh.
Correct. And that's like I'm pretty sure that's an Ivy League school. It's like a big school.
I'm not sure if it's Ivy League, but okay.
Look that up. So while Danielle's looking that up, I tell people when they ask me, "Oh, where did you go to school?" I tell them Berkeley, and then they're like, "Damn, this guy's really smart." But I went to Berkeley in New York City, Midtown Manhattan, 43rd Street, and it was not an Ivy League school. In fact, it was the fucking opposite. It was a private school.
No, UC Berkeley is not an Ivy League school.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I thought
Ivy
it was.
League is made up of 8 prestigious universities. Brown. I'll tell you the ones I applied to.
Okay, hold on.
I
Brown,
applied to Brown.
Harvard, Yale. There's one in Pennsylvania.
Princeton.
Princeton.
And the university.
But Princeton's in New Jersey. And where?
Oh, Princeton's New Jersey. University of Pennsylvania. UPenn.
University of Pennsylvania. Yeah, UPenn.
I got accepted to Cornell.
You applied for Brown too, what? Right? And isn't that like an African American college?
No, it's not.
Why do they call it Brown then?
Oh my gosh. I did apply to Brown. I didn't get accepted. I got accepted to Cornell, but I didn't want to go there.
You got accepted into Cornell. What were you going to take in Cornell?
Interior design.
You go to an Ivy League school to learn how to decorate?
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable. That's such a waste of fucking time.
Where there were like the most number of suicides recorded in like a college, and that was kind of scary to me. Like people would jump off the bridge
to escape a professor and some schoolwork.
I guess it's very stressful to be in an Ivy League school.
Dude, I could see a lot. Honestly, I could see a lot of Asian people doing that because, and listen, I'm not being racist or anything. I'm just saying that the Asian community really has high standards for their children, and like they have to graduate from like these very prestigious, top of the line schools. There's a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they want their kids to become doctors and become lawyers and have these like really good. I mean, I just feel like that's very popular in the Asian community.
I feel like there's other communities too, but
name one.
Indian. There's a lot of Indian doctors.
Okay, I'll give you. I don't know if it's as widely. If it's as like. I feel like there's not a lot of there's a lot of very rich Asians. There's not a lot of very rich Indians.
How
Is
do
there?
You know?
Look it up.
You sound so racist.
Dude, I'm not being racist. I'm just being stereotypical a little bit, but see which race.
What do I even ask?
See which ethnicity has
Who am I asking? Google?
Ask AI. You have AI?
Mm-hmm.
Ask AI. What is the ethnicity with the most millionaires? And see what it comes up with. I'm sure it's going to say like European white or something like that, but it's probably going to say white is number one, and I'm going to say Asian is number two. There's got to be a lot of just very wealthy families in the Asian community. I don't know if Indian would be like a top 5.
Okay, so it says Caucasians.
Number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Naturally.
Then it says white Americans make up the majority of millionaires, although the proportion of millionaires from other ethnic groups like Asian Americans has been growing due to their high levels of educational.
Oh, look at that. Who's racist now, dude? I was right, and that was a complete guess. Okay. Where does it say Indians are on that list?
The Middle East? Is India in the Middle East?
Technically, no.
It says, as economies in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa grow, the diversity among global millionaires is increasing.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. In particular, China and India have seen rapid increases in the number of millionaires. We were both right, honey.
Yay. We're both racist. Yeah, so that was just kind of a guess, but we guessed correct. I don't know what any of this has to do with motivating and inspiring.
Go to college. Don't jump off the bridge.
First off,
don't go to college.
Don't go to college. Okay?
Don't jump
Let me
off a
motivate
bridge.
you to do something real quick, especially if you're young and you're listening to this. And when I say young, I'm talking about from 18 to 24, 25. Let me make a suggestion. Okay? Unless you like have your heart set on becoming a doctor, or you have your heart set on becoming a lawyer, if you are not really sure, you get out of high school and you're like, maybe I'll go into engineering. I don't know. Maybe I'll go into architecture, or maybe I'll go into business management. You probably really don't know what the hell you want to do with your life. And I would highly suggest exploring life a little bit. The amount of people, I'm so glad that you're the producer today, because I'm going to have you Google something else here. Or don't Google. Use like Yandex. Have you guys heard of Yandex yet? Yandex is a search engine that is unfiltered. And I highly suggest people like start looking at things, especially when it's news related. This is a little side note. Look into Yandex, Yandex, rather than Google. Google is filtering the hell out of things. It's censoring things. It's kind of gearing answers towards what they want you to know, or what they want you to hear, or whatever the case is, especially when it comes to news and politics. But you'll get a much clearer answer from Yandex. But what was my question that I wanted to ask? What were we talking about right before I went on that Yandex?
Something about college?
Yep, I had no idea.
You were going to...
Oh, yeah. Find out the amount of students, okay, that go to college and don't go into the career field in which they got a degree in. So, for example, if they went to get a degree in fashion, and then you get out of college and then you go into, become a paralegal or some other job that, isn't fashion. Although I think if you work in fashion, it's probably a pretty cool gig. Although every gig seems cool until you wake up and you have to go to work every single day, and then you're like, it's a job. Back to college.
Okay, so I don't know if I worded the question correctly, but this was a statistics that I thought was worth sharing. 34% of employed college grads could have gotten their current jobs without a college degree.
There you go. 34%. Yeah, so that's 1/3 of people that are working didn't even need to go and spend I mean, how much is college now?
A lot of money.
It's a lot of money. I mean, and here's the thing about college. For those that don't know, it's the only debt that you cannot erase through bankruptcy. You know that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So let's say you get in over your head, you rack up credit card bills, you can't pay off the house, whatever, and you have to claim Chapter 13 bankruptcy with the court. You still owe college money. You cannot escape that debt. You will forever owe your college money. Now, the only reason that I went to college is because as a veteran of the armed forces in the United States, they pay for it and pay you to go.
Yeah.
So you and I looked at it as like, oh,
it was
like
a money-making opportunity.
It was a money-making opportunity. It was a way in which, I mean, we were cashing a nice check. I don't mind talking about it. We were cashing like a $4,000 check every single month for me going to college. Plus, they were paying for my tuition.
Yeah.
Plus, they were paying for my books. Plus, they were paying for everything. So when you go to work full-time, or when you go to school full-time under the VA, under
Montgomery
the
GI Bill.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. The VA, now they call it the post 9/11 GI Bill. But if you go to college under the post 9/11 GI Bill, then they will pay for everything, plus they will pay you. And that check differs, or varies, I should say, depending on which state and which college and all that stuff.
Correct.
So we chose the most expensive college in the most expensive state to really rack it in.
Well, no, we started when you were living in New York, so that's why you went to college in New York.
Yes.
It wasn't like we were in Florida and you chose New York, because I don't think they would.
And I was working a full-time job at the time.
Yeah.
So I was going to work, and then once a week I would take the train. That's the other stipulation. You have to go to an on-campus class.
Yeah.
Once a week.
Correct.
So once a week, I would drive into the city, or I would never drive. I would take the train into the city, and then I would take the train back to wherever I was working. And I knew guys that were also
Pennsylvania.
I was working in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I was working in Philadelphia at one point. So I would take the train from Trenton, and I would take the train into Manhattan. I would get there a little bit late I was taking night classes. So my class would start at 5 p.m., I think, and I would walk in the door at, 5:10. And it was no issue until I had like one professor, and yeah, he just like every time that you're late, like he was docking me points, and I was like, well, the gig is up, and they kind of forced my hand to have to drop out.
Well, I don't think that was the
temporarily drop out
factor.
That wasn't it started it. It started it for sure. And then of course I went to I started working in New Jersey, and then my work schedule had changed. So
well, then you went on the road.
And then I went on the road after that. Yeah. But
you took a hiatus. We picked it back up.
Yeah, it took a little bit of a hiatus.
And you
2
graduated.
years. Graduated with
You're
honors.
A college grad.
With honors.
With honors.
Thank you, Danielle. I mean, you were like a contributing factor of that whole thing. And listen, don't hate me. Don't hate on your boy for skirting around the system. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And listen, if you don't have a wife or a girlfriend or a fiance who's doing your college work for you, then get a better wife, girlfriend, or fiance. That's what I'm saying.
Or there's probably people that you can pay.
I mean, I was paying you. There was $4,000 a week coming in every single month.
It was a pretty good deal.
It was a nice deal. So like we were all winning.
Month.
We were all winning.
You just said $4,000 a week. That's a lot.
Oh, it was a month. I mean,
yeah,
it was over $4,000 a month.
Yeah, but it was worth it.
Absolutely worth it.
I enjoyed it. I like going to school.
You enjoy that shit, and I don't know. Like some people are made for it. You know what I mean? And you did a very good job. You wrote great essays. You know. So for those of you that want to know how to go to college, do it cheap, then go into the military first. And if you think that this is not advice that I would give my own daughter, you're wrong. If my daughter doesn't have a clear path to what she wants to do in her career, then my suggestion is going to be to join the Space Force. That's a branch of the military now, right? You got the Navy, you got the Army, you got the Marines, you got the Air Force, you got the Coast Guard, and now you have the Space Force. And because I think that it would probably be good do 4 years. And if you'll maybe get to travel a little bit, learn a profession. If you like it, fantastic. Make a career out of it. If you don't like it, that's fine too. Get out. You have your college degree. You'll have a little bit of direction. You'll learn a valuable trade and make a career out of it. Or go to some type of trade school, if she wants to go into whatever. But what I'm not going to do is take on $180,000 in debt so that she can go and drink and fuck off for 4 years. Like that, I'm not going to do. And I think that's what a lot of this college shit is. Mm-hmm. It's like parents that are like, you got to go to the best college. I have we have a friend of ours, and we went out to eat with them one time, and they were telling us about like their kid and like, oh, we got to get them into a college prep class, and we're gonna we got to make sure that during the summer he's gonna do like this special thing, and he's gonna make sure he gets college credits before he's even before he's a sophomore. And then
that's very popular here.
And she was like planning this kid, and I'm like, this kid is a kid. Let this kid play. Like, what are we doing? Like, that kid is going to be so fucking miserable by the time he's a high school graduate. He's not going to want to go to college. And then you're going to force college on him. And then he's not going to enjoy it. He's not going to get anything from it. And you're basically, in my mind, you're not steering the kid to success. You're steering the kid into a 9-to-5 job of boredom. And one of the things that is in that intro is to break free from the matrix, right? And that is the matrix. People that don't know what the matrix is, I suggest you go and watch the movie The Matrix. And most people they know that movie because of Keanu Reeves, right? My favorite actor of all time. Not the best actor, my favorite actor.
He's a terrible actor.
He's a fantastic man, though.
Okay.
Have you ever seen this guy? Like, he takes the subway in New York City.
That's a scary moment.
I'm serious. Like, Keanu Reeves will go onto the subway and like read a book. Like, he's just a normal everyday guy. And I work with this guy. He does he's an extra. Like, he does like extra work.
Okay.
As an actor or whatever. And he was a football player in the movie The Replacements, with Keanu Reeves was the quarterback of this team that was, whatever. I'm not going to tell you the whole plot of the movie if you don't know what The Replacements is. And he's like, yeah, he's the nicest, like sweetest guy in the world. Like, he was like very down to earth, like humble. Yeah. And that's who Keanu Reeves is. That's why he's the best actor. Like, I don't really care how good of an actor he is as much as like, is he a good human being? Right. Okay. Or is he like The Rock, who claims to be a good human being, and he's actually evil? There's something about The Rock that I can't stand. I'm serious. Like, I think like he probably had a very humble upbringing, and at some point, Hollywood really gets to you and makes you this person, and they oh, you're going to pair up with Kevin Hart, and we're going to really build your image. And then, you and Oprah are going to raise money for the victims in Hawaii. And then all that money goes
involved,
away.
It's
Oprah is an evil fuck. Oprah is evil as hell. I'm telling you, like, I look at this woman and she just did another special the other night for Kamala Harris. Like, I can't wait for Kamala Harris. Like, she's got to do that high pitch. Like, she's still doing the same act that she was doing in the early 90s when she had the Oprah Winfrey show.
Yeah.
It's the same act, but now like
Political.
it's very politically driven, right?
Yeah.
So she just had another special the other night. I have not watched it. I've only heard about it, about Kamala, trying to raise support for Kamala, and she had, all of her celebrities coming on to talk about how great Kamala is for the country. And you and I watched a show last week, and that show was on while you were on mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was something that I wanted to talk about last week, right? You never did mushrooms before.
No.
We're not talking about lion's mane. We're talking about psychedelics.
Right.
Which a lot of people have been experimenting with recently.
Mm-hmm.
Mushrooms have been around for thousands of years. This is not a new drug. Okay, people have been doing mushrooms since the beginning of time.
Well, they grow in the ground.
They grow from shit.
Right. It wasn't like a lab how to create them.
Correct. They grow from the ground. You pick them and you eat them. There's no, much like marijuana is the same exact thing. I hate when these drugs, quote unquote, I'm using bunny ears here, these drugs are demonized when they're plants. They're just plants, people. They grow from the ground. Yes, they have a euphoric or a psychedelic or some type of experience that you might receive, whether it's marijuana or whether it's mushrooms or whether it's dimethyltryptamine or one of these other things. Like, these are all natural experiences. And just because it's natural doesn't always mean that it's good for you. However, in this case, I do believe that mushrooms are good for you. I think that they open up your mind to spiritual experiences. I think that they open up your mind to some of the faults and some of the things that you may be living that you are not necessarily you may not necessarily recognize in your own habits on a day-to-day basis. And then you end up taking a psychedelic or something, and it kind of breaks you free from the monotony or from the matrix, right? And then when you break free from the matrix, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second, why am I doing it like that? Or why am I living this way? So I do want to ask you a little bit about the mushroom trip. I know that it was something that you and I kind of went back and forth with last week, whether or not you wanted to really discuss it. I'm sorry I'm throwing you on the spot. We don't plan these things ahead of time.
Yeah, we don't talk about the topics.
We don't talk about the topics. We're just kind of talking about the things that are going on in our lives. And we try to keep things about, health and wellness and transformation and motivation, inspiring. These are things that,
well, and I think that this topic falls in alignment with that. I just think that because of kind of how you just explained it, with
there's a stigma about
it. Society demonizing it, that I was a little bit nervous to talk about it, just because, fear of judgment. People might say like, oh, she did that, and to me, it's not a bad thing. And I know that you've done it before, and you kind of actually inspired me to be curious about it, because you have shared what you experienced, and you talked about it. And there was a point, I'd probably say a few months ago, when I just felt really stuck. And I was like, I called you or texted you, and I was like, we should do mushrooms together, just to maybe unlock something in my brain to help me overcome whatever I was feeling at that time.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that over the couple of months where we were waiting, I guess, for you to find some, because it's, not easy to find, being that it's illegal, which we can talk about this.
The legalities.
Right. Because it's coming forth that now they're going to be more and more like,
they're talking about
regulated.
medicinal kind of the way that they broke open the medical marijuana thing. Like, it's going to start out medicinally, and then they're, eventually, there's already states that are like making it, they're not making it legal. They're just not, it's not penalized or whatever. So like, if you get caught with mushrooms in your car, you're not going to jail for it. You're not going to get fined for it. But it's not like you can walk into a store and purchase it, for example.
Right. So in that waiting period, I guess I've started to have some breakthrough and kind of tried, figuring things out on my own or whatever, however. So when I actually like came to the point where it was like, oh, we're doing this today, it was like, oh, well, I guess we'll see what happens. And I don't know. Wait, what was your question?
Yeah, like how you what kind of triggered you
Oh,
wanting to start it, I guess.
yeah. So I guess for me, it was just like seeking a more spiritual experience because I have been, like closer to God and like reading the Bible more and all of that. So it was partially like I need some answers, partially like looking for something, I don't know what, but so it was just a culmination of all of that. But it wasn't the experience I thought it was going to be. Maybe I was super tired, maybe I didn't take enough. Whatever the case might be, it was just kind of like light and fun. We just had fun and we laughed a lot.
We laughed a lot. We started the journey to let people know we did it in a very light. They call it a heavy dose because we were using a dose calculator. So I wanted to make sure that it was fun, because mushrooms are fun, but I also wanted it to be a breakthrough experience for you. But I also know that like I didn't want to freak you out by it either. I didn't want to like have you do 5 grams and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what is going on here?
Mm.
Because I didn't break through that way. Like my very first time doing them, I did 3 grams, the same as you. Like I went in light, but when I went in, I was like, oh wow. I went out and was like playing tennis. I don't know if you remember that day. And I was out there playing tennis and I just was like seeing the ball and the sun was bright and like I just felt like very alive and very like wanting to explore the world. Like I just felt like everything was at peace. And for those of you that haven't heard people talking about doing like microdosing, taking less than 1 gram or 1 gram to less than a gram of mushrooms and them having like, oh, I'm just feeling energetic. I'm feeling very organized. I'm feeling like I can just talk, all day long. I can, I want to just like go and have conversations with a complete stranger. Like that's how a microdose will kind of make you feel. And then you can, gradually work your way up. So you did 3 grams, and um after we did the mushrooms, before they started to kick in, we went into the shower and just kind of cleansed our body and put ourselves in the right mindset. And then we went into the bedroom and we put on some like nice tribal music, something that, had a nice rhythm and a beat, nothing with any lyrics or anything like that, just to kind of recenter ourselves. And we just laid on the bed and we just held hands, and
it was cute.
It was cute and it was spiritual, and it was kind of just meditated. But I also told you before we went in there, I was like, we're not sleeping. That
I think I slept.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like it was supposed to, because what I didn't want to is like to do them and then like, oh, I slept through the whole experience, like
Yeah.
is to be kind of awake and kind of recognize like what's going on. What are the thoughts coming to my mind,
Right.
and kind of document that stuff. Where I went wrong is I came, after about 45 minutes of meditation and relaxation, and like I could tell that it was happening, and I opened my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, I was like, "Oh, they're here," because like in your mind, it's almost like a dream state, and it's a very living dream in your mind in which you cannot control. Like if you went inside to lay down right now, you can dream, you can start dreaming about anything. You can dream of yourself like walking through an open field, or you can dream about, being on a rocket ship or whatever the case is. When you're on psychedelics, that dream has a life of its own. You are not controlling that thing. Where are those thoughts coming from? I have no idea. the shapes and the colors and the things in which are just like popping up into your mind and you really can't control. You're like, what is this? That is the trip,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is like the trip. And the more that you do, the stronger that trip is. And when you're blindfolded, I've seen a lot of people, they use blindfolds or they'll use headphones to really isolate themselves and get themselves into a zone.
Yeah.
When you do it like that, you'll have very vivid experiences. I mean, extremely vivid experiences to where, yeah, you'll hear voices. And saying that out loud to someone who's never done them is like, oh God, you're hearing a voice. But it's not like that. It's not like you're just like someone is talking to you and you're talking back at it. I don't know how to describe it. It's not like someone on, methamphetamines having a fucking mental breakdown in the street of New York City.
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a very spiritual sounding, like you're listening to your soul, where you're listening to like a guardian angel or something that is like talking to you and like answering the questions in which you have. And one of the things that I like to do on mushrooms, and I don't do them often, I really like to keep it as a very like spiritual awakening, something that I need, and I take like a medicine, and it just kind of cleanses me. It makes me feel fresh and new, and it's not something that I want to pick up the very next day and do all over again. Not in a heavy dose, although I did ask you the next day. I'm like, oh, we should microdose today, like just keep the ball rolling. Like, we had a good experience last night. To show you what a microdose looks like. Something that's very light, something that doesn't have any psychedelic effect to it, something that doesn't make you have any you're not tripping out or just laughing uncontrollably. Like, you're kind of motivated and want to do things and you're happy about doing them. I don't know how else to describe it. In fact, like now they're making pills, but like, if you could make that pill
like a happy pill,
of like, hey, this has no side effects, because they don't, but you're going to be very happy today, and you're going to want to like clean the house, and you're going to want to like create something, and you're going to want to go outside, and you're going to want to go for a jog, and you're just going to want to be living life. Is that okay? Can you take this? You'd be like, yeah, I'll take that every day of my life. Why wouldn't I take that? But like I said, because of the world in which we live, that pill becomes very hard to get and very expensive over time. But mushrooms themselves can be grown in your own house. I've grown them. I know. So, and it's not like it takes a rocket scientist. However, it's
a process.
It's a process, and you got to keep things very clean. There's you want them to come out right. And they need attention. But when you start seeing them grow, there's something magical that happens. There's a connection between you and those mushrooms. I can't really describe it, but when you go in and you look at them, like one day they're barely coming up out of the soil, and the next day they're fully grown already, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And there's just like this, it's a very spiritual connection. And then you ingest that mushroom that you grew yourself, and there's this, it's like a happy pill. You're like, oh, wow, that's beautiful. That feels so beautiful, Yeah, and that probably, you probably get that same exact feeling if you're growing tomatoes out in the garden too. Like, I grew this myself. I didn't use pesticides.
Right.
Like, this tomato is better than any tomato that I've ever eaten in my life. I hate tomatoes, but I'm sure if I was growing them out in my garden, it would probably be better than anything that I could taste in a salad or from whatever restaurant or from any grocery store or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So mushrooms that are grown yourself is definitely the way to go. And I don't suggest that anybody getting themselves into a predicament in trying to get mushrooms or like ask the wrong people. I just so happen to know a guy who makes them himself.
You got a guy.
I got a guy that makes them. He grows them himself. he does them for his own personal consumption. And he was like, yeah, I'll give you some mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was honestly, I've never had a trip like that.
Mm.
Compared to the one that I had with you, and it was everything that I needed.
Hmm.
We laughed until we cried.
Mm-hmm.
Literally laughed until we cried about the silliest things. But it's, and I know that you felt like you were like gravity was playing in a heavier effect on you than the rest of the world. Like you just kind of
Yeah, there was like 2 stages of it, I guess. Like the first stage, like I said, like I kind of maybe slept through a little bit, but I think I also was not allowing things to happen the way they were supposed to. Like I was holding back or too scared, so like it didn't quite take the way it was supposed to for the first half anyway. Second half was just like calming, relaxing, funny.
Yeah, I remember like little bits and pieces. It's not something like you can recall everything because your world, your universe is in a lot of different places. You know,
Right.
you're in like these wild conversations. I like hyper analyzing every little thing. I remember one time I was on mushrooms, like I saw an ant like crawling across the floor, and I had like this very spiritual like connection with this ant. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, but when you're on mushrooms, and anybody who's ever been on mushrooms, please comment in the section on YouTube or whatever. But like when you're on mushrooms and you're like, you have that connection with a tree or with an ant or whatever, and you're like, wow, we are all like sharing this earth. Like this is a living, breathing thing that is like walking across my floor looking for food. Like he doesn't, to this ant, I am God. You know what I mean? Like I can take his life right now. I could, and I was like, I'm not even gonna bother him. Just gonna let him do whatever he's doing. Like in any other case, you just come out, die. Yeah, here's a tissue and flush it down the toilet.
Yeah.
And in this moment, I was just like, why am I bothering it? He ain't bothering me. You know what I mean? Unless I see a trail of them, just don't invite your buddies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're cool to do what you're doing. Just don't make it a habit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know,
So,
but that was like a mushroom trip that I had one time. Another mushroom trip that I had, I was in the shower. I had a very profound experience. If you don't mind, kind of taking the light here. So, it wasn't my first mushroom trip, but it was one that I had in which I had taken the highest dosage that I ever taken, which was a little bit over 5 grams, like almost 6 grams. And I was super nervous, like about to take them. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I should be doing this, like, cause you don't know what you're about to get into. You hear people talking, demons, and I've never had that experience. Like every time I've been on mushrooms, it's love and harmony and happiness, and the universe is one, and I am with the universe, and the universe is in me. And
you ever
like,
see the movie Trolls? That's
yeah.
like a psychedelic trip.
Yeah. So I am. I take the mushrooms. I go in to the bedroom, and I have kind of this like awakening moment, I guess. And I was hallucinating on some crazy shit. Like I was dreaming up like some of the wildest things, and I was just like, whoa, what is going on? And I just started writing. And I know that notebook is in there somewhere. And every once in a while, I like look at that notebook, and I'm like, oh yeah. And it was about time. It was about the universe. It was about things that in that notebook is like 50 years of quotes to live by. I can't describe it, but like they're all very, like, whether you're on mushrooms or not on mushrooms, like if you were to read any one of those things, you'd be like, wow, that's incredibly profound, And here I am just getting these messages in my mind, like one after another after another. And then I would lay back down, and then all of a sudden another one would pop up. And I'm trying to write them down, and it was like having gold sand in my hands, and it was just running through my fingers. Like I couldn't grasp it quick enough to write them all down as they were coming, like flooding into my mind. And it was making me emotional. I started crying. And I went into the shower, and I was like, I got to take a shower, you know? And I think this is kind of the experience you were looking for.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But I just don't think that you did enough to have that experience. But I went into the bathroom, and I got into the shower, and the loofahs were just like growing like flowers on the wall, because we had like little hooks on the wall of the bathroom, and we hung our loofahs to dry, and they were just pulsating and growing and swirling, and like the loofah was just like changing shape and metamorphosizing. And I'm looking at them, and I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on right now? And I felt like the universe was alive. And there's something about that, even though I knew that they weren't actually growing. And like anybody listening to that might think of it as a harrowing experience. Harrowing? Is that the word? A horrifying experience of like your mind, your eyes kind of playing tricks on you and that kind of thing. But it wasn't like that. It felt like I was seeing something that is always like that. It's just that your mind is in the matrix. You're in that 9 to 5. You're just in your routine, and you just kind of ignore the rest of the world and how the rest of the world actually is. And then all of a sudden you have an experience like that, and you're like, oh my God, this whole thing is alive. Like everything is a matter. Everything is an atom. We're all created from this very single cell thing. And like whatever it is, it's like we're all here. We're all experiencing this thing together, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And like, how have I missed this? How have I been going through life this whole time just thinking that, it's just me and it's just this one. It's just like we're all just people, we're all just getting on each other's nerves, when like we're all like in this together, like, and there's energy, and I was feeling it. And as I'm feeling this, another like awakening experience in the shower, when I went into the shower to kind of like cool off what the flood of information that was coming into my mind, in the midst of the shower, I see this body standing in front of me. And I'm like, I think that's God. I think God is standing right here, right now. And again, I broke down, and I'm crying, and I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Like I'm standing face to face with Jesus Christ. And again, it didn't feel scary. Like in that moment, my thought was like, God is always with me. Like, how could you not know? How could you just go through life and think that he's not with you? He's with you every second of every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He never leaves your side. He's in the shower with you. He sleeps with you. He goes to work with you. He's always with you. Even when you're in the car and you're goddamning the person that just cut you off, he's sitting there alongside you. And here I am in the shower, and I'm having this face-to-face experience with God. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on right now? I get out of the shower, you come in, and you come to check on me. You remember this?
Yes.
And I held you, and I put my head down on your shoulder, and I closed my eyes. And while my eyes were closed, I started falling through this very black void in my imagination. Falling through this very black void, and I was going through shapes that I've never seen before. These very complex geometric patterns that to this day, I'm like, where did that come from? I'd never seen anything like this. It was so beautiful. It was so magical. It was something insane. My heart was just beating out of my chest. And I remember saying to you, I wish you could see what I'm seeing right now. And I didn't want to open my eyes. Like I was like exploring in this black void. And here I was standing upright, my head down on your shoulder, eyes closed. But in my mind, I was in another universe. Like I was somewhere out beyond Pluto. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I wish that every mushroom trip brought that same exact experience, because I want to go back to that same place and be like, what was that? I want to go explore, because I think in the moment I was so shocked and in such awe that I couldn't even grasp it all. I was like, how is it any of this happening right now?
Yeah.
Maybe it's it's the reason that I have these shapes up on the wall, like for always and forever and always. Like I'm never going to forget that moment in which I'm just having this very profound experience of looking at these shapes while leaning on your shoulder. And then we went into the bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sitting on the edge of the bed, and you were sitting in the office chair, and you were just like looking at me. I think we were holding hands, and I remember looking at you, and then all of a sudden your beautiful face like turned into a wrinkled old lady. And you have beautiful green eyes. Okay. Are they green or like hazel?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever color they are. You have beautiful I'm going to call them green for the sake of this podcast.
Thanks.
You have beautiful green eyes, and as you're sitting there in front of me, your face becomes very wrinkled like an old lady.
Mm.
And I'm like, whoa, like I couldn't shake it out of my mind. Like I was trying to picture you normal, but like the old lady in you was like still there. And again, another profound experience in which I thought to myself, oh, wait a second. Danielle and I are going to grow old together. And a lot is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Her beautiful, vibrant skin is not always going to be beautiful and vibrant. Her lovely brown locks are going to turn gray one day. But her eyes will always remain the same. Like everything else is going to change about her, physical appearance.
Sure.
But her beautiful eyes will always remind me of our youth. And it was really gorgeous and lovely. And in the same amount of time in which the wrinkles took over, all of a sudden war paint came over your face. Like these red stripes. Like it looked like you were like it was like Indian war paint or something like that. Tribal paint, yeah. And I'm looking at her and I was like, wow, like she's a warrior. Like she's just not going to be my lifelong friend and the love of my life until death do us part. But she's also a woman who's battled a lot. And maybe she hasn't been to a war, or she hasn't been to, she hasn't had extremely traumatic experiences happen to her. But what we have gone through together, what I've put her through, what she's been able to overcome in our relationship and in her life and in her journey, she is a warrior, like from a cosmic dimension. And it just made me that much closer to you, I feel like. And it was a very lovely, beautiful experience. And it was one that I wish that we could have experienced together in that moment.
Sure.
But even if we were to experience that moment together and you were to take as many grams of magic mushrooms as I had that day, you can't imagine, like you can't create. The mushrooms are going to take you on your journey, and it was going to take me on my journey. For whatever I needed in that moment, that's where it took me.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're not going to have the same experience.
Correct. Like, as I'm looking at you turn into an old lady, you're not going to look at me and I'm turning into an old man, or else that would be kind of strange. But it would, I guess it could happen, right? But
I'd like to see that. Just
me turning into an old man?
I mean, I want to know what I'm looking at down the road,
I mean, there was like a picture that was taken of me one time, and I looked just like my grandfather, my father's father. And I was like, oh my God, like I mean, he wasn't as tall as I am, but I just looked like a very tall version of him. And he was he's a good looking guy, but I saw that picture and I was like, wow, I can't believe how much I look like him. Bald head, you know what I mean? So anyway, it was, sorry, I didn't mean to like completely steal your story.
Well, I mean, like I said, I really didn't have one. Unfortunately, it wasn't the experience that I thought it was going to be. And like I said, maybe it was just because I was scared or nervous or didn't allow myself to completely let go. Like I was holding on to the control because I'm a control freak. And
Well, that was one of the things that I did want to talk to you about because we had kind of mentioned it last week after your experience. And I had said to you, um, you know, sometimes the mushrooms highlight the things that it needs to highlight.
Mhm.
Like I look at it as kind of a spiritual message or whatever. And when you came out of it, the first thing that you said was like, I didn't really have the experience that I thought I was going to have because I just couldn't let go.
Mhm.
And I was just trying to control everything. And I was like, that's probably the message.
Mm.
You know, if you didn't get exactly what you wanted to get out of it, that perhaps it's because like you do have a control issue where you feel like you can't let go or you can't
Mhm.
um kind of cut the cord on
Mhm.
life and just kind of
Yeah, I couldn't completely disconnect. And I think
disconnect is the word I was looking for.
like just out of that like paranoia, of not knowing what was going to happen. So now that I have a better sense of like the experience, maybe I would, do it again to see if.
Well, I'd love to do it again with you. And again, I don't think like I think you just got to go a little bit deeper,
Mhm.
try a higher dose,
Okay.
and see exactly where that takes you. I don't think it's something that you're like, oh, well, it didn't happen this time. It will never happen.
No.
Because I think that it does happen for everybody. And I don't think that every experience is like necessarily the big, beautiful experience or the laughing experience. Sometimes it might take you down a little bit of a dark road, but I don't think that it ever leads you to a place that it's not supposed to lead you.
Hmm.
I think if you go in there with the correct intentions,
Right.
you and I actually, the one thing that we didn't talk about is we kind of had a little seance before we even went in there and we prayed
Mhm.
and we just said, God, the reason that we're doing this is to get closer to you.
Yeah.
And to grow our connection with you and to receive the message or the prayer in which you want to answer. And, we're not doing this to party or to we're doing this to kind of have this spiritual awakening.
Mhm.
And in my mind it was a great spiritual awakening. It was a great time with my wife to be able to just kind of
Oh.
loosen up and to laugh and then to watch Oprah Winfrey talk about
Right.
artificial
That's how we started
intelligence.
this conversation.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up with that. Yeah, it was kind of creepy because the guy that she was interviewing seemed very robotic and he was talking about
So
AI.
basically, yeah. So for those that don't know, Oprah Winfrey did a AI series, or a special, I should say. She did a special about artificial intelligence and the direction and the future of it. And she was bringing on special guests to kind of do this quick conversations. Like she was talking to each one of the guests for 5 to 10 minutes, each person. Um, People that are some of the creators of AI, some of the people that are helping develop AI,
Fund AI.
fund AI, Bill Gates,
Hmm.
who's a creepy fuck, dude.
Yeah, he looked like Kermit the Frog and he was fidgeting and I'm kind of fidgeting right now because I do have to pee. But
I have to pee too, and I always know when you're getting tired because you start itching a lot.
Mm.
You start doing you start itching your neck.
Like-
Your one eye starts to droop down like you
I
have
have a sty in my
like you're
eye right
having
now.
like you're having a stroke.
I have a sty in this eye. Is that the one that's?
Yeah, well, we kind of talked about only doing an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and we're about at an hour mark. I could talk for 2, but
Not at 10 o'clock at night.
not at 10 o'clock at
It's a
night.
Friday,
And we want to do another one
and it's
tomorrow.
11 o'clock at
We
night.
want to do another one tomorrow. I want to try to get a special guest on tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, I should have planned this a little bit ahead of time, but I know someone who will jump on, and hopefully we'll have a really fun and interesting guest tomorrow evening, and we'll knock out 2 of these. And I got to start editing. That's the next step of this
Yeah.
journey.
Well, that comment won't Makes sense to anybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Movement Podcast with James and Danielle Urban. Be sure to follow, like, and share on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Urban Movement Podcast for even more content. And don't forget to connect with your hosts, James and Danielle, on X at @TheJamesUrban and at Danielle_Urban_. Keep moving forward and embracing your journey with us at the Urban Movement.